Chapter 7. Hoity Toity. Matilda came back to school after a week. She looked sad and distracted. She wasn't even playing or climbing trees anymore during break time. And she had trouble writing because her hands were sore and calloused. Miss Summer became increasingly worried about her. One day, she called her father to school, hoping to help. But nothing seemed to improve. Matilda grew sadder and more distant each day. Ferry gathered courage to talk to her one morning as they walked to school. "What's wrong, Matt? You don't talk to me anymore. Have I done something wrong?" Matilda frowned. "That's none of your business, Ferry. Leave me alone, please." She then quickened her pace. "But something is wrong," he insisted, following her. "I know you miss your grandma." The girl halted abruptly. "What do you know about missing someone?" she snapped, her fists clenched. "Or feeling lonely? Just leave me alone." "I was just trying to help," Ferry mumbled. "I'm worried about you. Isn't your mum worried about you too?" But then he noticed a wild look in Matilda's eyes. "Don't talk about my mother," she shouted. "She abandoned us, my dad and me. I don't want to hear about her ever again." "I'm sorry," Ferry whispered. "I didn't know." But the girl pushed him out of her way. "I don't need your help, you freak." Then she sprinted away without even a backward glance. Ferry stood there, watching her disappear into the mist, his heart heavy with sadness. The next day, Matilda asked Miss Summer to move her to one of the front desks, pretending she had difficulties seeing the writing on the blackboard. At home, things were not great either. Besides the cold weather, which prevented him from staying outside, even stranger things happened in the Donovans' house. Oddities began in the kitchen first. His mother had just taken a tray of cookies out of the oven. In a blink, half of them vanished while she briefly looked away. "Did you take the cookies, Ferry?" she asked her son, who was quietly drawing in the sitting room. "You know you're not allowed any cookies before supper." Ferry shook his head. "No, Mum." Later that night, noises and thuds echoed from the ground floor of the house, prompting Mr. Donovan to investigate. Going down the stairs with annoyance evident, he reached the kitchen to find the drawer of treats wide open. Ferry usually had little access to that drawer. Now biscuits, candies, and cookies lay strewn across the kitchen floor. "You're not allowed any sweets for a month," his father roared the next day at breakfast. "But Dad..." Yet Peter kept on shouting. "This will teach you not to eat at night." Ferry tried to explain. Perhaps there was a mouse in the kitchen and the mouse opened the top drawer and threw out the sweets, didn't it? His father's voice thundered. Ferry didn't say another word. Truth be told, strange things were happening to him as well. Once he settled into bed, a peculiar sensation of being watched washed over him. And his raven had stopped visiting. Ferry had grown fond of the bird, and now he missed it. He couldn't tell his parents about the presence in his room. His mother would dismiss it as his imagination, and his father would accuse him of lying. All he could do was wait and see what would unfold next. Soon, matters took a darker turn. The eerie presence, its chilling breath felt all around him, grew more unsettling by the day. It would yank off his blanket, shove him, and send him tumbling to the ground. Each time, a spine-tingling laughter would fill the room. Then after several hours of absence, the presence would return, angrier than before. One morning, Ferry woke up to find his hair tangled into a wild mess atop his head. Despite his mother's attempts to tame it, every effort failed. So Ferry had no choice but to go to school with his hair resembling a giant cactus on the top of his head. "Is that your new haircut?" Billy Pride exclaimed the moment he saw him. "Quite fancy, I might add. What's the name of this new amazing haircut of yours?" "Haystack." "Stiff broom," he added between bursts of laughter. "I think he fell asleep, hanging from the ceiling with his head down," Danny Stevens said, holding his big belly from too much laughter. All day, Ferry had to deal with his classmates making fun of his wild hair. But strangely enough, those who teased him had funny accidents that day. First, Billy fell off his chair, as if pushed by unseen hands. Then Danny stumbled on his way to the blackboard. The teasing, however, went on all week, even after Ferry's hair returned to normal. And yet, trying to handle the strange presence in his room kept him awake at night. Miss Summer noticed he was always tired in class, which later led to lower grades. After some time, the presence grew bolder. It ventured beyond Ferry's room and into his parents' bedroom. One morning, Eileen woke up with such vibrant makeup on her face, even her husband got startled when he saw her. But even he wasn't spared from the being's mischief. In the days following, Peter woke up to find his mustache styled in various fashionable ways. Thin and sleek like a musketeer's, with twisted ends like the one of a dandy, and even shaggy and unkempt like the one of an old schoolteacher. Clearly the boy is not only disturbed, he's sleepwalking too. Peter would mumble every morning at the reflection of his ever-changing mustache in the mirror. As if being mad wasn't enough. That's my reward for working all day long to put food on the table. But how come we never see or feel anything? His wife tried to placate him. I'm sure it's because you sleep with your face on the pillow. Well, that makes you a sleepwalker too, since you wake up every morning with that painted jester face, he snapped. This is what I have to bear for marrying you. I've never heard of such weird things happening in my family, he said, thinking of all the jokes at his expense at work. Ferry was used to his dad's grumbling, but this time he felt he had to do something. Peter was always in a bad mood, and Ferry couldn't remember when he last heard something nice coming from him. But seeing his mother upset bothered him a lot. He decided it was time to figure out what was causing all the trouble. That night, he snuck into his dad's workshop and grabbed a small wooden barrel his mum used for pickles. He placed it in the middle of his room and put some butter and raisin cookies underneath. Using a stick and a rope, he propped up the edge of the barrel. Then he lay on his bed with the other end of the rope in his hand, waiting. Soon, the room grew cold again, and he heard crunching noises from under the barrel. With his heart pounding, Ferry pulled the rope. The barrel landed with a thud and started shaking, indicating he had trapped someone or something inside. Despite the pain from the iron rings digging into his hands, Ferry held onto the barrel tightly. Carefully, he flipped it over and placed the wooden lid on top. "Let me go. Let me go," he could hear a high-pitched voice coming from inside. "If I let you go, you'll bother my family again," said Ferry between quick gasps. "No, I promise you I won't. Now that you caught me, you are my master, and I must obey." Ferry cautiously lifted the lid of the barrel. A peculiar little man emerged, with a wrinkled face and a grey beard. He wore black leather pants held up by suspenders, topped with a white shirt and a green jacket. 7 rows of 7 golden buttons adorned his jacket, gleaming like tiny candles in the darkness. His shoes were buckled and just as shiny. Standing no taller than 3 feet, the little man peered at Ferry with his green watery eyes. "Who are you?" the boy whispered. "My name is Hoity Toity, and I'm a leprechaun." "Well, that's what humans call us," he said with a chuckle. "It's nice to meet you, I suppose. But why are you troubling my family?" asked Ferry. The little man lamented. "You took my shoe." "Where is my shoe?" "What shoe? What are you talking about?" "My golden, precious little shoe. I've lost it." And Hoity sat down to weep with hiccups and sighs. "Shush, quiet. You're going to wake my parents up." The little man wiped away his tears with the embroidered sleeve of his shirt. His gaze turned from sorrowful to mischievous. "I have gold, you know. I can give you a gold coin if you let me go," he said, pulling out a small, sparkling coin from his pocket. It shone so brightly that it illuminated the entire room like a torch. "I can't let you go," Ferry protested. "You're going to cause me nothing but trouble." "Put that coin away," "So be it," said the sulky little man. "Help me find my shoe and I'll grant you 3 wishes. And then you'll have to let me go. But say, how come you can see me?" "Other people can't," he said, raising an eyebrow. "You're lucky," said Ferry. "I can see things that aren't there. I don't know if it's a gift or a curse. Doesn't that make you a bit mad?" Hoity asked with a strange glint in his eyes. "What if I'm only in your imagination?" "Maybe you are. But this barrel isn't," said Ferry, and he locked the little man back inside. Then he climbed into bed, feeling exhausted but finally able to drift into a deep, peaceful sleep after many sleepless nights. Ferry couldn't leave Hoity-Toity at home for the whole day. He had to go to school, and leaving the creature unattended would surely frighten his poor mother. Luckily, the little man could shrink at will to the size of a finger, making it easy for Ferry to carry him in his school bag. All Hoity had to do was stay quiet. The first class was math, and Ferry had a test that day. It proved to be quite difficult, especially since Ferry hadn't had time to study with all the commotion at home. Now he was staring at the paper in front of him, filled with numbers and calculations. Ferry sighed. "I wish the answers just appeared like magic on the paper," he whispered to himself. Before he could finish, the paper filled up with numbers as if written by an invisible hand. To Ferry's amazement, he was among the first students to finish the test. The entire day went smoothly. But glancing at the front desk, Ferry noticed Matilda. She looked just as sad, struggling to write with her bandaged hand. He missed her friendship, her cheerful presence, and their shared games. After school, Ferry walked home with Ben, who was chatting about school and extraterrestrials, as usual. They spotted Matilda passing by, her head down. Suddenly, an idea struck him. He said goodbye to Ben and quietly followed Matilda, who was unaware of his presence, going inside her house without looking back. There wasn't a soul in sight. Ferry scaled the fence, finding himself in Matilda's front yard in the blink of an eye. He crept along the rose bushes, peeking through the window of her father's workshop. He saw Matilda greet her father with a small smile before donning an apron and settling onto a small chair to mend a boot. The cramped room was cluttered with shoes of every sort, most of them broken. It dawned on Ferry how Matilda had injured herself. Her father was behind on his work, and she was helping him out. In that small space, it was just the two of them, 2 lonely souls keeping each other company. Ferry trudged home with a heavy heart. He found his mother, as always, seated in her rocking chair, sewing away. As he watched her, he felt a surge of gratitude for having her in his life. With a warm feeling in his chest, he walked over and hugged her tightly. "What's the matter with you?" she asked, putting her stitchery in her lap. The thimble on her finger gleamed in the lamp's light. Ferry examined it. "What's that?" "It's a thimble, or I think it is. I found it in the backyard the other day. Can I keep it, Mum?" "Of course, dear. I hope it'll bring you good luck." Ferry couldn't stop staring at the shiny object. It seemed like it was made of pure gold, with tiny blue stones sparkling all over it. He realized it was Hoity-Toity's missing golden shoe. Ferry had been arguing with Hoity for over half an hour. The little man had returned to his normal size, sitting on Ferry's bed and munching on his favorite butter and raisin cookies. "That wish doesn't count. I didn't really wish for that," Ferry shouted. Hoity jumped from the bed and sat right under Ferry's nose. "Yes, it counts." Hoity's squeaky voice pierced the air in the room. "You wished that at least once you could know all the answers to your little math test. And I granted your wish. But I wanted something else. Something more important," Ferry protested. "A wish is a wish, no matter how big or small. So you've only got 2 wishes left," he concluded, stomping his foot. "And how long will you be around?" Ferry asked, feigning indifference. "Until I find my shoe," Hoity replied, scattering cookie crumbs as he spoke. Why is that shoe so important to you? The boy wondered. Hoity gave him a suspicious stare but didn't answer. You said I'm now your master. So I have to know. And no, it is not a wish. It's a request, said Ferry, firm in his tone. Well, I suppose I could tell you, said the little man. This shoe belongs to a fairy. A naughty and tricky one, to be precise. She's quite picky as well. When she's in a good mood, she's the nicest fairy in the whole world. But when she's moody, may the mighty winds have mercy on you. You see, this fairy loves to dance and bounce, and during one of her dances, she broke her shoe. So she sent it to me to fix it. I'm one of the best shoemakers around, you know. But if I don't return her shoe soon enough, she and her sisters will make my life miserable. That's why I need to fulfill your wishes sooner and be free, so I can find that nasty shoe, said Hoity as he prepared Ferry's bed for the night, never forgetting to complain about the knots in the mattress. Ferry had been sleeping on the floor ever since he became Hoity's master. Some master indeed. Accompanied by the little man's snoring, Ferry pondered the wish he should ask for next. But he couldn't think of anything specific. He realized he had everything he ever wanted. Yet deep inside, something had been burning since he could remember. It was a desire he couldn't share with anyone. A longing to run away, not knowing where. It felt as if another place, beyond his home, was waiting for him, calling him. The next day, Ferry had to bring Hoity along again. The little man shrunk and slipped into Ferry's schoolbag, muttering as usual. The morning was frosty. Ferry's hands, even with the gloves on, felt completely stiff. He couldn't feel his face. Then suddenly, Matilda appeared in front of him. She was barely dragging her feet. They hadn't talked to each other for 2 weeks, and it felt like an eternity. Hey Matt, Ferry greeted cheerfully, as if they were still the best of friends. Matilda mumbled something and kept walking. Ferry joined her, and they walked together in silence for a while. I wish I had a cup of hot chocolate right now, Ferry said to the girl, hoping to spark a conversation. But just as he finished speaking, a cup of hot chocolate materialized right under his nose, floating in the air. Ferry quickly grabbed the cup and threw it away. Luckily, Matilda was as absent-minded as ever and didn't seem to notice a thing. Hoity, thought Ferry. He did it again. Now he had only one wish left. Matilda was already quite far ahead, so Ferry hurried to catch up with her. Listen Matt, he said, I know what's happening. I know you're helping your father. How do you know that? She said with a hint of a quarrel in her voice. Did Miss Summer tell you? She's not supposed to do that, you know. No, she didn't tell me. Don't ask me how I know, but I do. Matilda surrendered, tears pouring down her face. You're right. Daddy is way behind with work. And he has no one to help him. And now that Grandma is gone, he has to do all the chores of the house by himself. She said between sobs. Why don't you let me help you? Ferry said, with a sparkle in his eyes. What can you do? She replied with a sniff. I can help you. But you have to promise me that tonight, no matter what, you and your father will not go to the workshop. Matilda nodded while blowing her nose. And Ferry knew what the third and final wish would be. When his parents fell asleep, Ferry slowly opened his room's window and slipped out. Jolting and climbing were second nature to him, as if he was born for it. On nights with a full moon, like that one, those skills seemed to grow even stronger. He kept Hoity hidden in his coat because he was so sensitive to the cold. They opened the gate of Matilda's backyard. The girl had left the workshop's door open, as promised. Ferry carefully removed Hoity from his coat with a sigh of relief. He had to endure the leprechaun's complaints about the human world's weather, as usual. Placing him on the ground, Ferry said, loud and clear, I wish for all these shoes to be as good as new by tomorrow morning. Before Ferry could even complete his wish, Hoity-toity sprang into action with astonishing speed. He darted from shelf to corner to work table, doing his tasks so fast, Ferry could barely keep up. In what seemed like moments, every pair of shoes was neatly arranged on the shelves, and the workshop gleamed with newfound cleanliness. After he finished, Hoity hurried over to Ferry, positioning himself directly in front of him with a demanding expression. "Now you'll have to set me free." Ferry smiled and retrieved the tiny fairy shoe from his pocket, giving it to Hoity. The little man's eyes lit up with delight. "Will I ever see you again?" the boy asked. For the first time, Hoity smiled. A proper smile. "If you ever need a good shoemaker, think about me," he said. "Now I must go. I've spent enough time in the world of men. I can't say that living with you was that bad though. Before you go, can I ask you something? Are you the one who's drawing on my behalf? Or punish the ones who do me wrong?" Hoity scratched his head. "No, that wasn't me. I've been hanging round here just to find my shoe. Oh, by the way, you should be thanking me. You have this bleedin' massive bird, ugly as sin, knockin' at your window, did you know? But don't worry. I've given it a good chase every time." Ferry felt his blood boil. "Go away. Lest I grab you and toss you back in the barrel," he said, struggling to keep calm. Hoity swiftly gathered his tools, vanishing into the morning mist, as a little song escaped his lips. A song that struck a chord with Ferry, though he couldn't place it. He hurried home before the sun started to rise. The next day, as soon as she saw Ferry, Matilda dashed over to him and enveloped him in a hug. Ferry's eyes widened in surprise at her sudden gesture. "Thank you," she whispered. "You don't have to thank me," he said. "That's what friends are for." That night, his raven returned, and with him, quiet came back to Ferry's home. He drifted off to sleep almost as soon as his head touched the pillow. But as he slid into the world of dreams, the same tune Hoity had whistled echoed in his mind, blending with the gentle whispers of the wind outside. "Come along, oh fairy boy.